I'm Alex Larson, dietitian, Ironman finisher, and host of Endurance Eats, the podcast where we break down the science of endurance nutrition and turn it into clear, practical nutrition advice to revolutionize how you think about fueling your body. So grab a seat, or keep moving if you're out training, and let's get started. Welcome back to the Endurance Eats podcast. This episode is where we are going to get up and personal into my life, my business, my training, and my own nutrition. Okay, I often say I am 100% human before I am a dietitian, so we're going to get into it here. And this feels like a really good way to wrap up season 1 of the podcast and talk about what we can look forward to as well. So in case you're new here, here's my story. I got into endurance sports shortly after college. I really enjoyed being fit and exercising, but I wanted a goal, something to work towards. And so I signed up for a local sprint triathlon. And while in college, I had become a fairly decent swimmer in the pool, so I felt like this was doable. And on race day, I ended up doggy paddling the entire 3/4 mile swim. I really didn't enjoy the choppy water from all of the swimmers around me. I rode my $600 Specialized hybrid bike and I jogged the run. But crossing the finish line was amazing. Between the endorphins and the sense of accomplishment and the incredible welcoming vibe and energy at the race, I was hooked. And so I went on to become a registered dietitian. I moved to a small town in southern Minnesota where I knew absolutely no one. But the town had a local triathlon. So I signed up for that race. I made a bunch of friends. I trained with them all year round. A few years later, next thing I know, I was signed up for Ironman Wisconsin. I trained for a year. During that year, I also changed jobs, got married, sold my house and moved. All things that you probably shouldn't do while training for an Ironman. And maybe someday I will sign up for another one and get a little redo. But it was that race experience that was a pivotal moment for me. Crossing the finish line is where I really felt my calling to help athletes with their nutrition. If anyone has done an Ironman before, you know that during the marathon, it's a bit of a war zone. There's people that are crying, cramping, vomiting. There's a lot of things going on. And so I just remember those moments and seeing those people struggle and thinking like, oh, there's ways that I can help. If I hadn't known how to fuel myself and hydrate myself well for that race, I don't know if I would have made it to the finish line. And so I started Alex Larson Nutrition a few years later after I had my first kid. I have 3 young kids now, so building a business and having and raising kids has been the biggest challenge so far in my life. My life is a Tetris game of scheduling and fitting in all the things that need to be done in a day because every single day is a little bit different in how I fit that all together. And it was after the 3rd baby was born, my daughter in 2023, I knew that I wanted to come back to training. In that past decade of pregnancy, breastfeeding, and raising babies, I had done 2 half marathons and a sprint triathlon. But I also knew that at the start of 2024, I wanted to get back to feeling strong and fit again. And that included getting leaner. Now, if you've listened back to my episode about body comp, you can hear me talk about where I stand in helping athletes with body composition while they're also training. And during that time in early 2024, when I looked in the mirror at the time, it's not that I had like bad thoughts about my body. I wasn't unkind to myself. I thought I looked fine, but it was when I looked at pictures of myself that was when I would say to myself, like, yep, I am rocking the postpartum body right now. It's not like I looked at myself and said, wow, I'm this fit athlete. And so I had to put in the work, and I wasn't ready to start training yet. With all 3 kids, it wasn't really until about 10 months postpartum when I started to feel the motivation to get exercising again kind of kick back in. But in that meantime, I did start working on my nutrition. So from January to July 2024, I worked on increasing my protein intake, being more mindful about discretionary calories, eating more colorful fruits and vegetables to get more, micronutrients in, and making sure that I wasn't skipping meals. I sometimes can get really focused in on my work, and I would let lunch get pushed back, and that kind of messed with my schedule throughout the day. So I made sure that I stuck to a more structured eating schedule. And this was a process for me. There were multiple setbacks. It took me months to really get consistent with my nutrition. And I will admit that the body composition was really stubborn. It averaged 1 pound a month or like half a kilo. It was slow. I continued to tell myself, though, that slow progress was good progress, even if it was as slow as 1 pound a month. I started back up running at the end of July 2024. I was mentally ready. I trained really well and I was very consistent. I was 10 out of 10 motivated. I got really creative too. When school started back up after Labor Day, I had my preschooler home every single afternoon, Monday through Friday. So I would work during the morning, pick him up, and then 1 to 2 times a week, we would head to the track. He sat in the bleachers, sometimes eating lunch that I had packed for him, often watching Paw Patrol on my phone, and I ran 400-meter sprint intervals, or I ran up and down bleacher stairs for 20-30 minutes to get in some, elevation training, because where I live, it's just not very hilly. Like, I was very much on a mission to get back into shape. And I continued with that 1 pound a month trajectory, but I was starting to gain muscle at this time. And by September, I could really start to see some visible progress in my body comp changing. And that was really exciting. But that slow and steady progress that continued to this day. So I'm about 14 pounds, so a little over 6 kilos down to date. I have a little bit more to go to get to like a body comp that I want to maintain. But honestly, I'm just so proud of myself for being patient and doing this in the best way that worked for me and my lifestyle. And in October, I swapped out my running shoes for my bike trainer. I have been religiously using Trainer Road's training plan to get faster and stronger on the bike. And I got addicted pretty quickly in how easy the program has been. The bike trainer sits in my basement, and if you follow me on Strava, you will see my workouts happening any time of the day. 5:30 a.m., 2 p.m., evening hours. I love that I can have my kids play while I'm riding the bike. I'm often getting shot with Nerf darts or playing mediator when the boys start arguing with each other. And sometimes I'm left blissfully alone to watch a good show on Netflix. I am sipping the cycling Kool-Aid. I love seeing my FTP, my watts per kilo ratio improve. It's fun to see that progress change when you are putting the work in. FTP is your functional threshold power. It's a form of measurement for your fitness and endurance on the bike. I went from 152 watts in October to 187 by the end of February. So that's a 23% increase in 4 months, which is insane. And again, has me continuing to stay like 10 out of 10 motivated. And I've been reflecting on the differences in how I feel in my training now compared to 10 years ago when I was a lot younger and kid-free. I truly feel like I'm stronger now, both mentally and physically. I'm recovering from my workouts much better. I remember specifically, especially when Ironman training, I would take naps during the day. I had lots of sweets cravings, constantly hungry. My hunger felt very unregulated. And nowadays I'm mom tired, which is a whole nother level of tiredness, but I still feel like I have good energy throughout the day. I rarely ever take naps. So that's saying something compared to 10 years ago when I had no kids. And I do give 100% of the credit to my nutrition. Most days I'm getting at least 120 grams of protein per day, which is about 1.9 grams of protein per kilo. And like I mentioned before, it's been a process to get that consistent for me. But typically my day looks like breakfast, which is always the same. It's 3 to 4 ounces of smoked salmon on half a bagel with a little garden cream cheese. Sometimes I'll do a whole bagel if I need the extra carbs. And that smoked salmon is like my favorite. I love smoked salmon. Usually I'll just buy the Kirkland stuff, the smoked salmon there. It's probably the best value, but sometimes my dad will smoke a few fillets for me. He has like mastered his recipe, and it truly is like the highlight of my day when I wake up in the morning and I get to have breakfast because it's so good. And I usually pair that with a protein shake. I use Thorne's whey protein isolate powder in the chocolate. Their taste is unmatched. It's so good. I pair it with chocolate milk, so it gives a really like rich chocolate flavor. And between that and the smoked salmon, that's well over 50 grams of protein in the morning. Lunch will vary with like leftovers from previous meals. Probably 5 days out of the week, I will pair that with a side Caesar salad. I just really am on a Caesar salad kick right now, with some rotisserie chicken added on top to boost the protein. So lunch is usually at least 40 grams. And then dinner will again vary, but I often will add some rotisserie chicken or rotisserie chicken or cottage cheese or both with whatever protein I made for dinner, again, to get at least another 40 grams so I can get to that 120. I don't snack a ton just because my meals have gotten quite large, but it's usually maybe mid-afternoon that I might have a snack. It just helps me kind of hit that protein target for the day if maybe lunch was a little short. And then in terms of around my training, it's all about the carbs. In episode 1, I shared the carb fueling guidelines. They're not rules, they're just a recommended starting point. And I went into this bike trainer cycle with the mentality of I'm not going to hold back on fueling my trainer rides. Even on my 60-minute rides, if they are a harder effort, like threshold VO2 max effort, I will consume at least 30 to 40 grams of carbs, usually within that first interval. Sometimes even more if I'm just feeling like I need it, so that I can have that last set feel very strong, finish the workout still in good spirits. It's been working really well, obviously like 23% increase in FTP. And I will say recently I had a week where I didn't do great with my nutrition on the bike. I didn't plan it well. The week kind of just sucked. I finished it with really low motivation. I also had a sick kid during the time, so I think all of my mental energy was going into that. And I left the week kind of with poor energy levels and some doubts in myself and what I could do on the bike. So I had to give myself a little pep talk and say like, okay, we don't have time for self-sabotage. We need to hit the carbs hard. That is what makes me fast. That's what makes me strong. That's what makes me feel good. And the last couple rides, I have fueled them really well, and I'm back to loving my bike again. And fueling on the bike trainer is really easy. I can lay out my buffet of options on the little table next to my laptop screen in front of my bike, or in my little like bento bag on my box. And now that I'm going to start transitioning to outdoors, I'm going to shift to using some more hydration mixes in my vest or in my bottles to get most of my carbs, because it's just so easy. And then also practice like grabbing and consuming gels while riding. And just keeping an eye on like staying on a fueling schedule. The bike is the buffet. That's my mantra as a sports dietitian. Because once you get behind, it's really hard to get caught back up. So practicing staying on a schedule and making it kind of second nature, so that when I do get to race day, it's kind of, like I said, not even a thought. I just stay on top of that. Nutrition and hydration is the end goal. One area that I haven't been great about lately is strength training. And someone recently asked how I was balancing the bike, strength training, and adding some spring running into the mix. And the answer is I'm not balancing it well. I haven't been strength training for weeks, and I know I need to. It's so important. It's not my favorite thing to do. I'm just a cardio junkie like everyone else. But honestly, I just need to pick 4 to 5 movements that I can do a few sets in 10 to 15 minutes a couple times a week and start there. I seem to have this all or nothing mindset with strength training. And when I do actually do a strength workout, it's as if I have full-blown ADHD. I find it hard to focus on what I should be doing, but I'll get there. I gotta keep practicing with it, but I gotta get started. I will get started, I promise. Part of my distraction, though, is prepping for this 3-day gravel camp that I'm traveling to at the beginning of April in Oregon. So I'm flying across the country. In episode 6, I interviewed pro cyclist Serena Bishop Gordon, who hosts these special blend gravel camps. And I'm so excited, but I'm also equally as nervous. We're going to do a lot of riding. Day 1 is about 40 miles. Day 2 is 50 miles. Day 3 is about 30 miles. And so hopefully I'm going to have a few outdoor rides here in Minnesota before then. But I did upgrade to Comfort Plus on Delta on my flights. So I hopefully will get some room on that return flight to stretch out my legs because they are going to be a hurting unit, I think. My goal at camp is to gain a lot of new skills and knowledge about gravel riding there because at the end of May, I'm heading up to the Le Grand du Nord race in Grand Marais, Minnesota. If you Google Grand Marais, you will see that it is the most stunning and charming little city along the north shore of Lake Superior. And I'm signed up to do the 54 miler. I would really love to be competitive. I historically have had this limiting mindset that I'm a mediocre athlete, that I just do this all for fun and health and fitness. But this time around, I'm curious what it would look like if I gave myself a chance to hang with the fast cyclists. Like, can I be more than a mediocre athlete? But I've got to put in the work. And so this first race, I'm going to give it my all, but I also know that there is going to be a steep learning curve. I've never done a bike race before. So we'll see where I'm at. Hopefully it will motivate me to keep getting stronger and faster and building my skills and then maybe make it on the podium someday. Now, what's ahead for Alex Larson Nutrition? Well, between Hannah, Mary, and I, my team, we are accepting new athletes into the one-on-one nutrition coaching program. I keep my business very simple and very focused. And the focus of my business is on that one-on-one program because I'm in this for athletes to see success and have the best results, not mediocre results, the best results. And the best way for me to help athletes to do that is by working one-on-one with them. I do have other resources such as my fueling guides. I've got a couple master classes. I do have a self-guided online course called Fueling That Fits, which is a great program for athletes to take if they're not ready to commit yet to the one-on-one program. I do have one new project in the works for this year. I can't say anything about it yet because we're just figuring out the logistics of what's possible with it. I'm hoping to launch it in 2026, so stay tuned for more details there. And I'm going to continue to bring you more free content through my website, social channels, my email newsletter. If you're not signed up for the Pancake Press, I will include a link in the show notes to sign up. And of course, the content from this podcast. So this is the final episode of season 1. I'm going to be taking a break to look back at the stats and the analytics of the season, take your feedback, and start working on season 2. If you have any ideas or ways that you'd like to see me improve the podcast, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. And I cannot thank you enough for all of your kind words and support over the past few months. I'm just blown away. A highlight for me was speaking at a local running club in February, and during the Q&A, a woman spoke up that the Endurance Heats podcast was her favorite program to listen to, and I thought my heart was going to burst in that moment. And keep an eye out. I will be sharing a few mid-season bonus episodes too to help you continue fueling that fire, and we are targeting season 2 to start up in early July. So until then, happy training, happy fueling, and I will see you in the next season.